So I got AirPods and I really like them. They're really easy to use. They're basically earpods without the wires, but that has a lot more benefits than you might think. I'm actually using earpods right now to record this podcast just because they have lower latency. And it feels like I'm tethered to my computer, which is not a good feeling. I'm already tethered to my phone all the time. So just not having wires is really nice, a lot more mobile. I like the controls, actually. I didn't know if I would enjoy the double tap on the sides of the AirPods, but it's not been problematic for me. Once you get used to them, it's fine. I kind of wish that they were touch sensitive so that you could like swipe your finger up and down for volume controls and maybe track playback controls.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, the controls are nice. I like them. The range is pretty good, so I don't have to be right next to my iPhone or Apple Watch. They have really good battery life, like really good. I think probably even more than the advertised 5 hours. And
oh wow!
I do wish that it were easier to check the battery life though, because like sometimes it's like I have to fumble around. Like, okay, they're connected to the Mac, so I go to the Bluetooth options, etc. And if they're not in the case, you can't see the case's battery, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, I guess that makes sense because it's paired to the earphones, not the case.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. The sound quality is a bit better than the earpods. I was listening to a bit of music on the earpods after I plugged them in to record, and the sound quality, it sounds like tinier. It's not quite as good. I think the bass is also better on the earpods. Overall, it's a definite recommend. I really like using the case. The case is fun to just fidget with in the hand and open and shut and open and shut and open and shut. So yeah, I'm satisfied with the purchase, regardless of whether when the new AirPods arrive, which I'm expecting like probably like a wireless charging case in the first half, and then a full new model in the second half of the year. Yeah. Anyway, when are you expecting new AirPods?
Probably about the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I don't own any. I don't really plan on getting any because earpods don't really fit my ears. I actually use Beats X. So.
Oh yeah, Beats 10.
Yeah.
How many X's and 10s are there?
Lots.
Yeah, I actually really like the fit of the AirPods. Like the earpods feel a lot lighter in my ears, which is kind of nice, but it also makes them a lot looser. And I think I've only knocked an AirPod out of my ear once but it wasn't because I was doing anything normal. So yeah, overall, I really like them. They're a solid product.
Nice.
So now that we've had that bit out of the way, I mentioned on the last episode that I'll be getting AirPods a couple weeks ago. Now let's get into the real meat of the discussion. My name is Uluru, and I'm your co-host of the podcast, and I'm joined today by, you said your name was... Jason. I'll get it right sometime. All right, and I'm joined by Jason, your other co-host of The Flock, and this is episode 4. So, CES came and went. Were you following the news in CES?
A little bit.
Cool. Did you see anything cool?
Mostly TVs.
Yeah.
Have you seen Samsung's modular TV?
I didn't see that. What was that? I only saw the rollable LG TV. Which
that one was cool too, but yeah. I think it was Samsung that made, but they're micro LED panels that you screw to the wall, and then they just connect to each other, and you can make a giant display with them.
Oh, cool. That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Like you could have a custom shape or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not...
That's funny.
My description of them is not doing it justice. You have to like look it up to see them. Okay. But it's pretty cool.
I will do. That's cool. The rollable LG one is like weird but interesting. Like it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. That would be cool to get.
The general theme of CES, I think, is that none of this stuff is necessarily something you want to buy, but the technology is the forerunner for stuff that we're going to see in the future. So like eventually we'll see more useful applications of flexible displays.
Yeah.
I'm still actually not sold on foldable phones. How about you?
not really sold on foldable phones, but the TV
Yeah.
I would consider, because I'd rather have a TV that can like disappear when people are over, and then
that's
just
good.
roll up whenever I just want to watch TV. So that's
Yeah.
why I would get it, because then
But
it
not a
could be
phone,
out of the
definitely.
way.
Yeah. I think that the main point of having foldable phones is to combine it's obviously to combine the tablet and phone form factor, because eventually we're going to hit the constraints of what a phone's screen size can be. But I think that AR headsets are going to solve that problem, where you can have like a virtual screen on your wall or wherever you want it. Like, I think that a foldable form factor isn't even an ideal phone or an ideal tablet, because a tablet that has the aspect ratio of two side-by-side phones isn't an ideal tablet. It's closer to a square than it should be. And then like a real tablet should be a bit longer and more rectangular as opposed to square. So like basically the aspect ratios would have to be messed up, and ultimately a foldable device is neither a good phone nor a good tablet. So yeah. I hate to use the classic toaster fridge line, but that's basically what it would be. You don't need to combine those two things. But yeah, I think AR headsets are going to solve the issue of screen space constraints with virtual screens. Yeah. Another thing I saw was a thing called a SKU case. It's a suitcase that has a built-in electric scooter. And I'm really confused as to why they didn't call it a scoot case with a T, because that sounds much better verbally and you can better tell what it actually is. A scoot case doesn't sound like a suitcase and a scooter, but a scoot case does. Like, I think a scoot case would be a much better name for it.
Yeah.
And that's aside from my concerns with the product itself. I just don't like the name. So that's enough to make it a no for me. Basically, it's all just gimmicks that could prove useful in the future, but cool technology doesn't necessarily make good products. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a microwave with Alexa in it.
Oh dear. Totally safe.
Are you excited for 5G?
I don't know. It's obviously I'm not going to get it for a while, because iPhones aren't going to get it until like 2020 if the rumors are correct. But I
Yeah.
don't think that I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, Apple needs to get on the 5G train or it's doomed, because 5G isn't going to be relevant until like 2020, I think.
Yeah.
And another thing that I really dislike is the way companies are branding their connectivity. So I don't know if you saw, but AT&T has been branding its 4G technology without any changes as 5GE, and the E supposedly stands for evolution, but they clearly want it to sound like it's 5G even though it's not. So it's it's fraudulent, it's insane, and I am not a fan of AT&T right now. I'm a proud Verizon customer. So what do you think about 5G?
I'll have to see when it comes out.
Yeah, I would have to like see a real world comparison of
Yeah.
like what a loading time for a website on my phone would look like as compared to a 5G phone.
Yeah.
Until I see that, like I don't even think I'll be convinced if I see like numbers on like gigabits or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not a cellular expert. But yeah, I think it's not going to be a game changer on any products really until about 2020 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't think it's a problem that Apple's waiting longer before implementing it. Apple did not announce anything at CES, but it did have a thing at CES, or rather in Las Vegas. It was a giant billboard with a picture of an iPhone on it, and it said, "What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone," along with a link to Apple's privacy page. So what do you think of Apple using privacy as a major selling point? Do you see that as having like monetary value to justify higher prices for iPhones, etc.?
I don't know if it justifies higher prices, but I definitely see it as a big point for switching to iPhone from Android, because that's like the only other competitor.
What about Windows Phone?
That died 2 years ago.
It lives forever in our hearts. I bet 24 people at least were sad about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's a selling point. I think I've said this before in previous episodes, but basically when you buy a cheap Android phone, you are paying the rest of the price, whatever the company sees fit, in your personal data.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily paying more money, but you are paying the price in personal information.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that even though Apple's not perfect, like the way it handles data for Chinese users and the way it gets paid by Google to be the primary search engine on iOS, I think there are a couple things that Apple could improve and should improve. But in general, it's definitely better than its competitors about privacy. And I think it's fine for it to use that as a selling point.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, oh, well, Apple doesn't do everything perfectly, so it shouldn't talk about privacy. But I don't think you have to do something perfectly in order to be better at it than your competitors. I think Apple is definitely better than everybody else.
Yeah. Although there have been found that quite a few third-party weather apps on both the iOS and Google Play Store are sending non-anonymous data to, like,
the developers?
Yeah, the developers. That's the word.
It's a hard word.
Yeah. So it is recommended that you do use the pre-installed weather application on iOS or Android, whatever platform you have. Weather Channel is actually one of the apps included, and that's the one that provides the weather information for the iOS app.
Oh, wow.
But that one's not sending data, which is really weird.
Huh.
But yeah, WeatherBug is also included in that list.
Okay.
But,
I have used WeatherBug. It's not my primary one, but I use the mapping feature for it, which is nice. Interesting. Yeah, like
that's the
there
only
are a ton
thing
of,
I wish the Apple Weather app would have, because that would be nice to have.
Yeah, there are a ton of examples of Apple not being perfect on privacy, and but I mean, all you're proving is that we live in an imperfect, unjust universe, which is a sad truth, but ultimately doesn't mean that Apple shouldn't use privacy as a selling point. So, like, I don't think Apple claims to be perfect. I think even Apple is aware of the slip-ups that it's had, and I think everybody is really aware of some slip-ups, but it's still definitely the best about privacy. And DuckDuckGo, which is a search engine, like a Google alternative for privacy-conscious users, has recently switched to... You use it?
Yeah, I use DuckDuckGo.
Nice. Oh, cool. So they've recently switched to Apple Maps for their mapping data, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So that's just another example of how, like, generally, even though Apple Maps it used to be terrible, it was making people drive into lakes.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but on the iOS 6 icon, the little arrow would drive you off. The app icon would drive you off an overpass.
Oh dear. Yeah. Luckily, I don't think that ever happened in real life.
Hopefully not.
Anyway, so yeah, definitely imperfections, but overall, I think the best choice is still Apple if you care about privacy, and that's fine. Yeah. So some people say that some people criticize Apple for bragging on its privacy policies when it really is not perfect. But basically, I think they're missing the point, which is that even though Apple is not 100% perfect on privacy, it's still good. So we can't expect perfection from anything in this universe, so we can settle for best. So did we see any new products? AirPower, for example?
Not yet.
No.
How about the rumored/leaked smart battery case?
You know that was launched, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That was launched last week. You seem to not have known about this, so I will describe it to you. It was available for all the 2018 iPhones, so XS, XS Max, and the XR. And the XS model actually does function fine on the iPhone X. The camera bump is a slight misaligned fit because the XS camera bump is a bit bigger than that of the 10, but it still fits and works. All three of the cases cost $129, which is $30 more expensive than the last one. They support wireless charging, which is really interesting to me. Yeah. they don't have a chin anymore. You know how the old battery cases had a chin that extended below the bottom of the physical phone itself?
Yeah.
That has been removed in favor of a larger bump that extends all the way down the back of the phone, and the lightning port is in the hump instead of in the chin. So
that's
it's
cool.
a slight compromise in that it looks weird for the lightning port to be like in a different place on the z-axis, I guess it would be, from the lightning port of the phone itself. But I think it's a worthy compromise because there's no chin, so it fits better in the pocket, I think. I have not used it, but I assume it's probably more compact and like I think it's probably denser too. Like, probably feels more substantial. So, what do you think of the price? I think the price bump is worse than the physical battery bump. This is one of the examples of things where I don't think it's necessary or justified for Apple to increase the price, even though the cases might last longer. Like, we should expect to pay the same for products that for improved products, even if they are better than the last generation. Like, I think the price should have stayed the same.
Yeah. Well, although the phones are bigger, so it would make a little bit
$30
more
bigger.
sense. But not a whole lot. Still not a lot.
Maybe a $2 price increase would make sense. To make it $101.
Yeah.
But not $129. What do you think about have you ever used a smart battery case?
I have
you
not.
seen one in person? Okay.
I have looked into getting one, but then I never did.
I used to use the iPhone 7 smart battery case. I think I mentioned this before.
Yeah.
And the silicone got damaged. Silicone is not the most durable material ever. I kind of wish that they would have changed it, and probably not to leather, that doesn't sound right, but to something other than silicone, or made it more durable, but I don't think they have. It hasn't been indicated to me, at least. I think I'm actually not, I don't have a problem with the bump on the back of the case. I think it's worth the utility that it provides. I think the smart battery case has always been one of the better looking battery cases, all of which tend to be hideous. But I think the new one probably looks better. I haven't seen it in person, but I want to. I'm interested to see how the bump looks when it goes all the way down the back of the phone.
Yeah.
So that is the new Apple product for this last week. No longer just rumored, no longer just leaked, but actually existing. There weren't any other new Apple announcements, were there? Nothing official? One thing that you had on your notes was the iOS menus, which we discussed in the last episode, but had not tried yet.
Oh yeah,
I installed the beta.
So I got the public beta of Shade, I believe it is. Yes. Yeah, Shade, by the developers of Coda, I believe.
Codia. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think. Yeah, because Coda is an app. But there's
Coda is a different
Codia. App. Yeah. Anyway, so I got that. I just got it pretty much to mess with the menu, just to see how that would work. And it makes total sense where it is. There's like a menu, really cool. Like a menu, air quotes, like up at the top with hold on, let me open it just to double check.
And just for reference, it's basically a new implementation of a macOS style menu bar in iOS. Controlled by touch and tapping and holding rather than hovering with a mouse. Yeah. And it has a little line underneath, which I really like, because there's a little icon that that's a menu. Oh, yeah. I wish Apple would do that for 3D Touch. Someone did do a render with a little, not rounded corner, but a quarter square. Kind of thing in the bottom corner. A quarter squircle. Yeah. 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 And actually, let's talk about 3D Touch for a second, because that's another interface thing that I am interested by. I think, do you think that the next iPhones will have 3D Touch? I sure hope so, because I use it quite a lot, probably more than the normal person would. I have not double-clicked my home button in probably a month. Wow. And it's the gesture where you 3D touch on the left edge of the screen, right? Left side. Yeah. I think 3D touch is a really good idea as a concept, but right now the implementation is terrible.
Yeah,
There's no visual cues to know when you can tap and hold or 3D touch on something. I actually have 3D touch turned off in accessibility settings now, just because I'm preparing myself for the inevitable day when I will no longer have 3D touch on my iPhone. I hope Apple saves 3D touch by giving it visual cues and actually implementing it on like the iPad and deeper in the system, and basically just doing a better job with the technology that they have. But I don't have high hopes. I think that they'll probably kill it eventually. If they don't improve it, then it's basically just going to stagnate, and I don't think developers are going to adopt it anymore. I think it's basically, it was a cool idea at first, but if they're not committed to it, then nobody else will be committed to it.
Yeah.
So the next topic that I have on my notes is Apple and healthcare. And if you think about what Apple has done that's been the biggest for changing, as far as changing the world, you might think it's the iPhone, because that's ushered in the next age of communication and connection. But Tim Cook himself actually thinks that Apple's most important contribution to mankind is going to be in health. He said so in an interview with Jim Cramer. And I think that's a really interesting idea, because Apple hasn't made healthcare its major focus as a company. It has made it the major focus of, say, the Apple Watch. But I'm curious to see how they'll transfer their entire status as a company to a, not necessarily a healthcare company, but a technology company that's focused on healthcare. So the healthcare things that they've done in the past have been with the focus of giving individuals more control over their own well-being, like with activity tracking on the Apple Watch, or medical records on the iPhone, or self-diagnosis with the Apple Watch again. And I'm curious to see what they have in mind for the future. So, like, what they have right now is mostly the Apple Watch. They have an ECG for heart arrhythmia detection, and one thing that was really surprising to me is that some doctors are worried about the potential for false positives, basically causing medical offices to flood with patients who are worried about their diagnoses from the Apple Watch. I think that's totally bogus, because you shouldn't ignore or you should not ignore or not use a diagnosis that might be accurate. So, like, just the fact that there could be a false positive does not mean that you should not have an ECG at all on the Apple Watch. I think that's kind of missing the point, which is that it's already saved lives, and if it has the potential to save lives, then it should not be ignored or completely dismissed. Another thing that Apple's done with the Apple Watch is fall detection, added on the Series 4 Apple Watch, which I've not used or had the chance to test, unfortunately, but because I have a Series 3, not that I haven't fallen at all. I have fallen before. So fall detection is another example of not necessarily a general activity tracking thing, but preparing in case of a medical emergency, like if you fall and hurt yourself and need to call the police. Or not the police, need to call an ambulance or something. Another idea that's been rumored is stroke detection, which I think would be interesting. Again, it's one of those things where if you have the ability to save lives with it and improve people's lives, then you shouldn't ignore it. So I'm definitely for adding more diagnoses like that to the Apple Watch. Another thing that's somewhat related to healthcare and that it could save lives is car crash detection. Which I think they already have the technology that would be necessary for that, because they have an accelerometer. They know when you're driving because of the Wi-Fi Doppler effect. So they could probably tell when there is a sudden stop, and I guess they could tell whether you were braking, like braking really hard or actually crashing. And I'm not sure if this is even a technical possibility, but if it is, then I think that would be an interesting implementation of the technology. And then another thing that the Apple Watch does is just general activity tracking, which is more about motivating people to have healthier lives as opposed to emergency preparedness, which is another good thing that Apple's doing for healthcare. But still, these are things that aren't necessarily changing people's lives entirely, because they haven't permeated our society yet. Like, if Apple's greatest contribution to mankind will be healthcare, then clearly Apple has more plans up its sleeve for what it's going to do. And one thing that's a major shift in like the medical industry, or will be one, is health records being available on the iPhone or iOS devices. So that's one thing. So users can be able to look at their records without having to go to a hospital or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how the process would work with an iPhone versus without them, but clearly they're trying to take control over medical records into people's hands, and I think Apple's reputation for privacy is a pretty good benefit here, because Apple's probably the only technology company I would trust with my medical records. I probably would
really
not trust
not Google.
Imagine if you got ads for like prescription medicines that you had been given. And,
that would be weird.
Advertising and medicine do not mix. I think Apple's business model is a good sign that it's trustworthy in situations like healthcare, because it doesn't care about your data.
Yeah.
But it
well,
does
technically
care
they do
about
care,
health.
but they don't want it.
Right, exactly. But whereas like a company like Facebook or Google would benefit from having that information. So the main goal, I think, of what Apple's doing, this healthcare revolution, or however you want to romanticize it, is in giving individuals more access to their well-being and their health records, which I think is definitely a valiant pursuit. And apart from general well-being, there are also emergency safety benefits. So things like the car crash detection or stroke detection. And one thing that the iPhone has, and also that the Apple Watch has, is emergency SOS, which you can get for like the iPhone 7 and earlier, it's by clicking the power button 5 times. I think it's a different process for newer iPhones. And on the Apple Watch, you can just hold the side button down. It sends an emergency warning to the authorities and to a specified emergency contacts, if you wish. So that's good. I think I've never had to use it, but it's always comforting to know that you have the ability to call the authorities if you need to.
Yeah.
That alone is a pretty good selling point of the Apple Watch, knowing that you have an emergency contact device on hand. Another idea that I had recently was, what if iOS basically had a very, very, very low power mode? So basically survival mode for if you're stranded somewhere and you need to get help. So you would transmit your GPS location to either the authorities or specified contacts every hour or so, and then basically wouldn't do much else, just to save battery life.
Yeah.
So they could call it beacon mode or something. It's basically just something to let people know where you are in case of a very drastic emergency. So there's a lot of potential for how technology can be used in healthcare. And speaking of privacy, it's very important that they have a balance of privacy and utility. I think Apple is probably the company that's best suited to balance privacy and healthcare as it's going through this process. So I do think that it's very possible that Apple's greatest contribution to mankind will be in healthcare. Apple's greatest contribution to mankind will not be coming up with terrible app icons. That job has been left to another company named Slack. So let's talk about Slack's new iOS app icon and macOS. Is it my understanding that you like the new logo?
Yes, I actually prefer it. I'm one of like 3 people that actually prefers it, but yeah.
Okay. Here's what I will say about the new logo. It is bland, it is uninteresting, it is not unique at all. The old hash mark and the S were easily recognizable to users as being Slack, the app, whereas they say it's a hash mark, but it's not. This new thing is not recognizable in a sea of app icons on your home screen. I don't even use Slack, and I can't stand the icon. It just doesn't make sense that they would change it from how good it used to be. And they listed in a blog post some of their problems with the old one, like it had too many colors, etc. But all of Slack's problems with their old logo could have been fixed without that design atrocity. There was one potential logo that was proposed after very little experimentation by somebody else, and it looked way better. It still preserved the old uniqueness of the old Slack logo, but it didn't totally butcher it and make it some generic shape. So yeah, I definitely am anti new Slack logo. And another thing is, in the App Store update notes, they refer to it as an app button. And like, it's not an app button, it's called an app icon or logo. It's, yeah.
Yeah. And in the Mac OS version, they only included 2 icon sizes.
Really?
Yeah, they included 1024 by 1024 and then 512 by 512. You need like a lot more for like notifications and things.
Yeah.
You can't just scale that stuff down.
Yeah, one of the things they even said was
right.
that their new icon was more scalable, so I wonder if it has something to do with that. But I still feel like they should have more different resolutions.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on from that controversy and talk about a different controversy. One that's been kind of rumored, but only vaguely for some time now. Basically, an Apple subscription. And you mentioned that you had not heard a lot about this, so I'll explain basically what the idea would be. So you would pay like $69 a month, and you would get every year a new iPhone, and you would get a new iPhone case, and you would get Apple Music and Apple's TV service, and Apple Care, and more iCloud storage space. So it would be a bundle of all Apple's major products and services, all in one convenient payment package. That's the idea of it. But one thing I've thought about is that it could get very messy very fast if they had too many options and storage tiers. Like, oh, here's one that gives you an Apple Watch, and here's one that gives you a Mac. So it would have to be as simple as possible so as to prevent confusion for consumers.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that general idea, like having an Apple subscription?
I think that would be really good.
It's sort of
and
like
I think
an
that
extension.
would actually be a pretty good deal too.
Yeah.
Because I believe the iPhone upgrade program is like $35 a month.
It's something like, I think
like
it actually
that.
depends on what model you get. Basically, this would be an extension of the iPhone upgrade program to include more than just an iPhone, which I think seems like a good idea. Some people think that it would work better if you just had services, and maybe you got a discount on your iPhone every year. So there are a few different options, but I hope that Apple only has like 1 or 2 different tiers of the subscription service, because if they have a lot of options, then it'll get confusing really easily.
Yeah.
Another thing that I realized is that you know how Apple has like seasonal phone cases and watch bands?
Yeah.
Those would make a lot more sense if, like, in the subscription you get a watch band every 3 months or something like that. Because nobody buys a watch band for every month of the year. That makes no sense. So a lot of their fashion ideas of having multiple Apple Watch bands, which some people do, but not a lot of people. Some of those fashion choices make more sense if it's part of a subscription that includes them.
Yeah.
Because that way you're getting revenue from the people who would not have gotten a watch band in the first place. Let's see. Do you think that do you think Apple's TV service would be available outside of the subscription bundle, or do you think it would be like, I don't think they would require it to be included in the bundle, right?
That would be weird.
Yeah, that seems like too much of an upsell to the main bundle.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting if they tried that move. I'd be curious to see how many people would want to get maybe a services bundle instead of a hardware bundle. So I personally would not mind an Apple subscription service for $69 a month that included all those hardware options and services. So
yeah,
I think that sounds like a good idea. Some people don't. Maybe it doesn't make sense from a business perspective, but it does from a user perspective, in my opinion. For this user at least. It's basically a good way to keep a steady source of revenue and consistent upgrades from people who otherwise would not do either.
Yeah.
What do you think that subscription service would be called? One idea that was proposed is Apple Prime. I think that seems kind of cliche.
Yeah.
Another idea that I thought of was Apple Plus, because although it's also cliche and cringe, it would make a little bit of sense because they no longer use the name Plus for the iPhones. So maybe they cleared that name scheme out for the purpose of freeing it up for their subscription service.
Yeah. Someone on Twitter did propose Apple Core.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yep, that would be good as well.
Yeah.
I love puns. That's not a pun. That's just a play on words. So that would be interesting. I'm curious to see if they would actually do that. It seems kind of un-Apple-like at first because generally I don't think they do. Like they don't do much of anything with bundles. But yeah, I think it sounds interesting. It's a good way to move on to a time of longer upgrade cycles and keep people interested in getting the new iPhones.
Yeah.
Speaking of the new iPhones, let's talk about the rumors of the 2019 iPhone models. First of all, what do you think they'll call them?
Hopefully they'll go with, forgetting, they're not Roman numerals. I'm like completely blanking.
Arabic numerals?
Yes. I don't know why I couldn't remember that.
Just
But
regular
yeah,
numerals.
Just regular numbers.
Yeah. If they do regular numbers, I hope they do 11. I don't know why they would skip past 11. I hope they don't. Basically, I just hope they don't do Roman numerals, and anything else would be fine with me.
Yeah. You get all sorts of weird pronunciations.
Right. Like having the Roman X and the Roman I for 11. It like looks like it should be 10i or xi or z or something.
Yeah.
It's like it's just weird. And also,
and the 11R would be zir,
or xis would be terrible. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I think just straight up 11 would be fine with me. But I mean, other naming schemes would also work. Like I would be interested in iPhone Pro. Or just iPhone.
Or like maybe they're just going to keep it 10, like they did with macOS for like 19 years.
iPhone 10.13.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be bad. But if they keep the 10, what would they have as the modifier for it? Because they had the 10s, so where would they go after that?
I don't know. They'd probably just go down the alphabet. You'd have to go
iPhone 10T.
Yeah.
Oh man! But then they would eventually get to iPhone 10X. Now I'm depressed. So what do you think the iPhones will look like? Like any major design changes?
Hopefully smaller or no notch if possible.
I don't think it'll be no notch, but the rumors have suggested maybe a smaller notch, which I guess I'm fine with. I thought they would keep the notch design the same until they could completely eliminate the notch, but
yeah,
I'm fine with a smaller one.
Yeah.
Actually, the main thing that would be on my wish list would be flat edges, like on the iPad Pro.
Definitely.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like this year will be a major design revamp. The one thing that has apparently changed is the camera system. So the rumors have suggested that they'll have the same screen sizes, the same 3 models as they did last year. So 5.8 inches, 6.1 inches, and 6.5 inches. And at least the 6.5-inch model appears to be getting a triple camera system. So a 14-megapixel camera, a 14-megapixel camera, and a 10-megapixel camera. So apparently there are some prototypes that have gotten leaked by someone within Apple, I guess, to someone outside of Apple. And they've been posted online. Both of the designs that have been proposed as prototypes have been terrible, in my opinion.
Ugh.
So
yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, there was one that was like a zigzag. With
I have not seen the zigzag one.
Right and the microphone in the bottom right. The zigzag actually looks more likely to me than the one that looks exactly like some Android phone, which is with the camera bump horizontal in the center of the back of the phone.
Yeah, I've seen them both. Never mind.
Yeah, okay.
When you said zigzag, I thought like it wasn't like encased in like the rectangle that it is.
No.
But I thought it was like it was.
That would be so bad.
The cameras were literally arranged in a zigzag pattern, with like the glass in a zigzag pattern.
Yeah, no, that would be bad. But I mean, what actually got leaked is still bad.
Yeah.
Luckily, these are just prototypes, so no need to panic. The one with the camera bump in the center of the phone, like centered horizontally, that one does not look likely to me because I think one of the signature design elements of the iPhone is the placement of the camera bump in the top
In the
left of the
corner,
phone,
yeah.
which looks better to me. So I think what's most likely is a camera module that looks like the one on the XS, but has a third camera in the place of the flash, and the flash is a small thin ring around the central camera.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So that's what the other leaked one looked like, but that one had the whole system switched at a 90-degree angle from that, like horizontally oriented, and in the center of the phone, which I think those changes are unnecessary. They should just have it vertical again and in the top left.
Yeah.
There's no need to just have change for change's sake.
Yeah.
Apparently, the benefit of the zigzag would be better depth sensing if the cameras are not all on the same vertical plane. So that would be the benefit of having one of them moved off to the side from the other two. So that makes me think that the original leak, the one that shows the zigzag, is actually the most likely one that got leaked. But
Yeah.
still, they're prototypes, so no need to panic. What do you think about, let's see, which models do you think will have the triple camera?
Probably, definitely the Max,
Yeah.
and then maybe the regular size.
Right.
Because with the 7, single camera on the regular and then 2 on the Plus. So
Yeah.
that would make the most sense to me.
I kind of wish...
Yeah, make people want the larger, more expensive phone because it has
the
more
thing
cameras.
is, though, like, not everybody likes the bigger form factor. So I think that the two OLED phones, apparently the 6.1 inch will still be an LCD. So basically the successors to the XS and XS Max, I think they should have the same feature set, and they should only be different in size, just like the iPad Pro models, because different people prefer different screen sizes. And there's no reason to have one of them objectively better than the other with the 3 cameras. So it becomes less about preference and more about like whether you want the cameras, but you shouldn't have to make the choice between a good camera and a screen size that you like. So I hope that the 5.8 inch model has a triple camera, but apparently the rumors are suggesting that it'll be just the Max. So also the successor to the XR is apparently getting a dual camera, which makes me think that maybe to provide distinction from the XR and the new XS, they have the XS successor get a triple camera. Sorry, so that way it's more of a selling point versus the LCD 6.1 inch model. Because if the XR and the XS have the same camera, that would make the XS look a lot less attractive than the XR, as far as the cost to value ratio. So yeah, I think they definitely are going to want a distinction between the XR and the XS. I'm calling them by the same names they have this year because I don't want to keep saying 5.8 inch model and 6.1 inch model. It's a mouthful. So what do you think of USB-C on the iPhone? Do you think they'll finally make the switch this year?
Hopefully, that would be nice to see, because then all of the products would have the same port, except for AirPods.
Oh,
They would need USB-C, and then everything would use the same. Because I believe Apple TV even has USB-C on the back instead of
I didn't
Lightning.
know that. I wouldn't be surprised if they had USB-C, but it's not like you connect your Apple TV to anything, so it's not really necessary. The major products like the MacBooks and iPhones and iPads would all be unified at last, which would be nice. The one thing is, a lot of people are saying that that USB-C is just better for users in general, and the only reason Apple would want to keep Lightning is to make more money on Lightning accessories. But I don't think that's the whole story, because a lot of people are going to be mad if Apple switches from Lightning to USB-C, because most people just want their existing accessories to work. And it's not long before iPhones aren't going to have wires at all, no ports at all, I think. So a switch to USB-C followed by a switch to no port at all might just annoy people twice in a row, and that's not really necessary. Other than that, though, if they're not planning to switch to a completely wireless iPhone, then I don't have an issue with USB-C. I think it's good for users as long as they can get past the initial annoyance of switching accessories.
Yeah.
And having the same cable system is a good benefit. Another thing that's on people's wish lists, even though it's not been officially rumored, that's an oxymoron, is ProMotion, the 120 hertz display from the iPad Pro, which I think would be great on the iPhone.
Oh yeah, definitely. Every device should have 120 hertz refresh rate.
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah.
I want a 240 hertz refresh rate.
That would be crazy.
Yes, it would. I just got a Java update on my Mac.
Oh, you still have Java?
A Java notification. Yeah, I don't even know why I have it.
I uninstalled Flash like yesterday because I kept getting the please update alerts, and I was just, I'm done.
Congratulations.
You're gone.
Sir. So what do you think the pricing will be? Do you think it'll be the same price points as this year?
Hopefully.
Or last year?
Hopefully they don't increase it by $100 every year.
Yeah. I don't the thing is though, they have not really increased prices. They've just made products that are more expensive. So they didn't have
True.
a 6.5-inch iPhone that was $999 and then they bumped it to $1099. This is a totally new product, and so is the iPhone XR.
Yeah.
The problem is basically that they're making phones that are too expensive, not that they're charging too much for phones that used to be cheaper.
Yeah.
I think that a $649 version of the iPhone XR, but with a smaller display, like maybe even an iPhone SE size, would be really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
And the thing that suggests to me that Apple's pricing strategy is not the cause of its iPhone sales problems is that this is a problem with the entire smartphone industry. So the cause is going to be something that is shared by the whole industry, not just something that Apple does. And Apple might be the main company to have price hikes on all its products, but it's not the only one suffering. But the one thing that is affecting everyone and causing everyone to suffer is longer upgrade cycles, which has nothing to do with sales, I think. It's really just about how good people's current phones already are.
Yeah.
So I think that their pricing strategy for this year was probably fine, if not great. And I think that sales are going to level off, and it's not a huge source of growth anymore, but that's fine. But I think that to make the iPhone more accessible and better for people who prefer smaller phones, a $649 5-inch iPhone XR would be really nice. Speaking of smaller iPhones, though, let's talk about the iPhone SE, which went back on sale for 10 seconds, if I am correct in my calculations. They basically were just selling off all the leftover inventory they had, I think. And now it's gone as quickly as it came. Have you ever used an SE in the store? Do you know what the size feels like?
Yeah. I used to own a 5S, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good screen size in my opinion.
It's too small for me. My fingers get all caught over each other.
I would very much like a new SE. I don't know, I'm not convinced that they're actually planning on one, but I think it would be really nice. It sold out really, really, really fast, which is probably just a sign that they didn't have many they were selling. They were at lower prices than before. I think it was $249 and $299 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah. So let's just assume that a new iPhone SE is on the way. What do you think it would cost? Would they go for the same market that they targeted with the original SE? Or would they basically just go for people who prefer smaller phones? Because with the SE, I think they were targeting emerging markets like India for people who wanted cheap phones. So do you think they'll go for the cheap market or the small phone market?
Hopefully for the cheap market.
I would.
It seems like if you want a cheap phone, it's Android or nothing. And it's not even a flagship Android, real budget.
True, yeah.
So hopefully they do one that's lower. I don't think they'll ever do $300 for it, but definitely a lower price, I hope. That would be nice to see.
I think the sweet spot for me would be an SE-sized phone with iPhone XS specs, but it would cost even $699 would be fine. But I think they would be more likely to do $649.
Yeah.
But that would be really nice. Another thing that is actually rumored rather than just a dream of people who like small phones is a new iPod Touch. And this news that it was even rumored and being discussed was very surprising to me because I thought the iPod Touch was just going to be dead and gone and forgotten and nobody would ever try to reanimate it. But apparently a new one is on the way, if you believe the rumors. Always reliable rumors. So do you think that would basically fill the role that the SE used to fill, of being like the cheap phone for people?
I'm not sure.
I don't know if that would even be a good idea because it would probably cannibalize a lot of iPhone sales. So like, I don't know.
And I've seen more iPhone without SIM than iPod Touch.
Oh
like
yeah,
just out
a lot
and
of
about.
hand-me-down iPhones without SIMs get used, like by kids. Yeah, I'm really surprised that they're doing an iPod Touch, and I don't think there has been any indication of what features it could have. But there was a concept by some concept artist that showed maybe it could be like basically a monster gaming device with like a 7-inch screen, Pro Motion, and basically other gaming related features like I think a more powerful chip and things like that. So it would essentially merge the iPad mini and the iPod Touch into one medium-sized device. I don't think that's a good idea because cannibalization. It would totally be sold in place of a lot of iPhones, and like it just doesn't seem like it has a place in the lineup at all. I think they should just take everything that's good about that concept and put it into iPhones. Like I wouldn't mind an even bigger iPhone, I guess, for certain people, but I mean, it's kind of filling an unnecessary void, and it ultimately would just cause cannibalization.
Yeah.
So that is all that I have. Do you have anything else that you'd like to mention?
GitHub now has free private repositories.
Cool. I'm actually not a GitHub user, but
I am.
I've like downloaded things from GitHub. That's cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Microsoft.
Microsoft is the best.
Yeah. That's pretty much it for me.
Yeah. Speaking of Microsoft, I don't know if you saw, but like I didn't even see this, but I think it was the coach of the Patriots in yesterday's playoff game. He like totally threw his Microsoft Surface Pro on the ground, and because of some play that went wrong. I was not watching the whole game. I only got to see the end of it. But
I didn't even watch the game.
It was pretty funny. I saw a video of it after the fact. And Panos Panay, the Surface executive of Microsoft, he tweeted that they had made sure that all of the all Surface Pros were Belichick safe before they were put on the field, and yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah, so Microsoft Surface Pro, it's safe for use in football. Yeah, I think that's all we've got.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see what happens in 2019 as far as the iPhone. I'm curious to see what design changes there will be.
Yeah.
And I think that is all. So,
Yeah.
as you know, Jason, we had to go about 2 weeks without recording because I was very tied down with some stuff going on. So hopefully we will be able to get back on our normal recording schedule, as we always say we will. Yeah, we are committing, but not promising. All right, so I will see you, hopefully, next week.
Hopefully.